Welcome back, everyone, to the Leadership Launch series. Thank you all for joining. My name is Spencer, and this is a channel where I help build leaders and help them build their own teams. So thank you again for joining. Today, I'm going to show you the inner workings of story and how stories are being used against you in your own leadership without you even knowing it. Stories are all around us in the world. The Egyptians with their hieroglyphs, the Bible tells the story of Jesus. The Chicago Bulls, when Michael Jordan was around. Microsoft, the rising of Steve Jobs and Bill Gates. You can even think of J.K. Rowling and the Harry Potter series. All around the world, there are stories that move, touch, and inspire us. And stories that tell about these events in such a way that can really warp and shape the way that you see and view the reality of what there is. And like I said before, we're going to be going over how these stories can actually work against you and keep you from being a great leader to those around you, rather than focusing on how to make a really good story for this video. The first thing I want to acknowledge is, what is a story? What's the difference between a story and between something not being a story? It just is what it is. And the definition of a story is that there is something that happened and then there's something that you saw. There's what you made it mean. So what you made it mean. That's very critical to keep note of, because this is why you need multiple witness statements for a jury or for a criminal case. It's because there may be something that just happened and everyone has a different input about what it is or what they made out of it. Only once people have a general consensus can there be an agreement, at least for the most part, about what actually ended up happening. And that's why this is really important, because especially when we're dealing with only ourselves as leaders, not many people are there to really point this out to us and really call us out, because a lot of us as leaders don't have a system in place, a community, accountability group that keeps us on top of what we're saying and calls us on our bullshit. Because a lot of people, like everyone else in the world, can create their own bullshit and it smells. If we were to look at this more closely, let's say that there is a kid here who is looking like this, and let's say that he has the cookie jar, right? He's got a big old thing of cookies. He's putting his hand in the cookie jar. A lot of you may look at this and, I can ask you, what do you see here? You see a kid. If I were to ask you what happened, I'm just gonna put that, you're gonna say, what actually happened, if we take the meaning out of it, if we take the feeling out of it, is that a kid reached into the cookie jar. A kid reached into a cookie jar. Now, what the story is when you look at this, you may look at the Pharaoh eyebrows and say, well, he's a bad kid. Bad kid who reached into the cookie jar. If I were to take away this guy's, this guy's gnarly brows, and instead put this, you could say, it may just go back to kid. If I put something else in here, like a dog, okay, then the story changes. Oh my goodness gracious! Wow, today is not my day for drawing. So let's say that there's a dog here, right? Let's say that there's a dog here who's wagging their tail. All of a sudden, it's like, oh, you know what? It's not a kid. It's a guy who's giving a treat to his dog, right? If I change this back again to a guy furrowing his brows, then you may be confused. You may be thinking, are the cookies poisonous? Why is he looking so devious when he's feeding the dog? The way for you to tell that you're adding meaning to a story is think about yourself 30 feet away from someone up in the air. Let's say you're up in the air 30 feet away. In fact, grant it 50 feet. Just make it a 50 even. And you can't hear them. All you can do is see them. So if we were to break this down, again, with you being an angel, or at least I hope an angel, ha ha ha, with a bird's eye view, with a perspective, and you're looking down at this guy who's giving a treat to a dog, you're not really going to see his facial expression at a certain point. You're just going to be seeing him giving a cookie to a beautiful dog, again, on the ground. And that's how you can tell when there is something that just happened or the story you made it out to be. Because again, you must take a bird's eye perspective, an outside perspective with no audio. Just look at what happened, observe what happened here. Now that's the point of just identifying what's a story. Again, there's something that's happened, and then there's something you've mean it to happen. And ironically, the thing about stories is that to really hammer home this concept, I just have to tell you a couple of stories of my own to really hit home the meaning that I'm trying to illustrate here. Now, I'll share with you two stories. I can share with you two stories, one that changed my life forever in a positive perspective, and one that changed my life until recently into a negative perspective. I'm going to start with the positive because the negative is always interesting to leave to the end. What ended up happening is that I was having my graduation during the time of COVID. And because of that, I didn't really have a traditional graduation per se. I had a graduation in the parking lot, you know? And what ended up happening is that you drive into one parking lot, you get off, you get your awards, you get your congratulations, whatever else the case was, and then your parents were supposed to meet you into the gym parking lot to pick you up because as a memento, they let you go through the hallways of your high school one last time. So naturally, I go up there, I get my rewards, and my family takes off, and I'm going through the halls one last time, really breathing in this nostalgia, the next chapter of my life, because now I'm graduated high school. And I get to the gym, I see some of my teachers, I see some of my advisors, I see some acquaintances that are there volunteering, and I pick up the rest of my stuff and I go out the doors. When I reach the doors, my family isn't there. I have no clue where my family is. And everyone's asking, oh, Spencer, where's your family? I thought they were going to be here to pick you up. I was like, I thought so too. And I made a joke saying that my parents just really wanted me to be independent right out of high school. And everyone had a good chuckle out of it, and so did I. I texted them and called them. It turns out that they were on the way to the beach for my graduation party, and they forgot to pick me up. It's just a miscommunication. But they would be 20 minutes. They get back in 20 minutes or so. What ended up happening was that as I'm staying there, I'm waiting for my parents to get there. And in the meantime, I'm going to say hi to my peers because I haven't seen them for a year and a half at this point. We were in COVID for at least a full year. And my peers, they would come down the hall and it's like, hey man, hey girl, it's so good to see you. Oh, how are you doing? Man, I wish you the best. I hope that we see each other again sometime. And of course, they occasionally like, let's please stay in touch. Because at that point, I didn't want to stay in touch with them. And the first thing, I promise you, the first thing that came out of their mouths was, oh, where's your ride? Spencer, who's coming for you? Where's your ride? Who's coming for you? Who's coming for you? And I would make the same joke over and over. It's like, oh, my parents wanted me to be independent right away, blah, blah, blah. Eventually, I kept hearing that over and over and over again. The first thing that came out of their mouths were, where's your ride? Who's coming for you? Who's coming for you? Where's your ride? Where's your ride? How come no one's here? After a couple dozen times, it really hit me in the head that fundamentally, I was alone. I came out of high school. I had a relatively privileged upbringing, so I could focus on my academics and sports the entire time. I didn't have a car. I didn't have money. I didn't have any skills that I knew that I could just apply to the real world as I know it and get a job at least to take care of myself, I fundamentally realized that, at one point my parents will be gone. Who knows what will happen to my siblings? My brother may be dead. My sister may be into drugs. My other siblings could have a really bad relationship with me. There's no telling what could happen. And I was alone because I can't expect any of my high school friends to let me stay with them. I didn't really have any close friendships to begin with at that point. In that moment, I chose for myself that I was going to be an entrepreneur because they were reliable. They had all that they needed. They had all the money in the world that they needed. They were dependable. They had skills. And most of all, they weren't helpless. Because in that moment, I was helpless. Hopelessly helpless. And I never wanted to feel like that again. I realized that's my story about why I wanted to go into entrepreneurship. That's what changed the course forever for me, being just an engineer, following my dad's footsteps, to being an entrepreneur, to going out and trying things, to really use my gifts for what I'm good at. And all that happened was my parents forgot me at my graduation. That's all that happened. In fact, I think that they even got there earlier. Instead of 20 minutes, they got there in 15. That's all that happened. And crazy as it is, crazy as it may seem, I made this story. I made it mean something more than what it was. And of course, people are going to ask me, where's my ride? Everyone was just leaning out the door. They were expecting me not to be there. That's why they were curious to ask me. And it was really crazy when I really found that out for myself. That was just a story that I made. That changed the course of my trajectory ever more. And I fully embrace it now. And I fully understand that that's a story. I have not regretted it. I think that that's really served me in my life. There was another story that I have that didn't really serve me though. I was ironically also just getting out of high school. I really wanted to be a professional volleyball player. During that year, I was said to have a starting spot on a club. I had personalized classes for volleyball coaching in my school, not just practices. I had a starting spot on my school team, and I had a coach that I was working with, a trainer that I was working with on the outside. I was really setting myself up for success for my volleyball career, especially my senior year. When COVID hit, all that was robbed from me. I still remember crying in a driveway with a girlfriend at the time, thinking about, is this really it? Am I supposed to just be playing mediocre volleyball? Or how am I gonna make this work? I either drop volleyball now because it's not worth just keep playing. And I decided in that moment that no, I was gonna keep trying. So long story short, I still had an Olympic trainer, an actual Olympian, train me for a stint throughout that summer. I had an Olympic trainer to help me with my vertical. I had to call in a few favors to make sure I had gyms open so I could practice in. I practiced constantly, the best I could. I did everything I could. And I didn't have any club experience either. My senior year was robbed in that sense from me. I got college offers at that point because I sent in some videos across Canada at that point. So I was in a decent spot in order to figure out where I wanted to play volleyball. But I wanted to play with the U of M Bisons. I wanted to play with the university volleyball team here. As I go to this tryout, long story short, because I hadn't been surrounded by that caliber, it was really apparent that for someone with no club experience, I was really good. Like, really good. Again, no club experience. And just trying to be there with people who had that club experience, who were a bit more polished, the difference was there. And I did lose my confidence because they were thinking and used to a different playing style than I was, because I was just an individual. So the volleyball coach sat me down and they told me that I wasn't good enough to play on the team by the end of it. I sat there, I was like, well, could I be a redshirt? No, you can't be a redshirt because we have a couple other guys coming next year and I don't think you're going to be able to catch up. I said, well, could I be an ace server? Just someone who serves. They said, no, not really. We don't have a need for that. We have a really strong serving team in the first place. He said that I just wasn't good enough. And that broke my heart because I put everything into this. I spent money, I spent time. I already overcame one hurdle with COVID to still get reps in, to even get better trainers, to call in favors to use gyms without essentially paying for it. For me, I made it mean that all the hard work won't pay off like it's supposed to. You should not give 100% of yourself to anything you want, because it's not going to happen. And from that point onward, I wasn't willing to give myself to anything, not 100%, authentically to anything, for 5 years. For 5 years before I went through a session and really realized that for myself. And I robbed myself of 100% effort in my relationships, in the pain program that I was in my health, my wealth, everything. I robbed myself because I said, what's the point anyways? I'm not going to get what I want. And all he said was that I wasn't good enough for that team. I still had offers. I still had opportunities. I still had people who wanted me to play for them. And I made it mean the downfall of all the fruits of my labor for the past few years of my life. And that was really heartbreaking when I first thought about it. And we make it mean so much more that we end up defeating ourselves before we've even begun. Or we can't give a presentation because we're just so riled up and fearful that we're going to suck or look bad. We're not going to lead a team because we think we're a bad leader. It's really crazy what we make these stories mean for ourselves and what we make it mean about others. And that leads to two things that you really got to keep in mind for yourself. One is that there will always be stories. You will always be making stories. There's stories everywhere. Don't try to convince yourself otherwise. There are stories. Two, because we make stories about ourselves, we also make stories about others. And in those stories, we look good. We don't look bad. And those stories I call payoffs. And the reason why I call them payoffs is because in a payoff, there is a transaction. There's a cost to that payoff where you get paid, where you're made to look good. You are basically taking something out of that deposit of whatever the relationship is, of the value of that relationship. And it's called a payoff. So again, payoff itself, because taking value from it. Now, what does a payoff look like? Think about any relationship that you have amongst your teams, amongst your personal life, that's unwanted and yet keeps persisting. Okay? For me, I had a huge payoff at the time against my partner, my girlfriend, about time. She was being late to something, right? So my payoff was time. And to illustrate this more, what ended up happening was that my girlfriend has this tendency to be late to a lot of events. Now, also, if she's watching this, babe, I understand that you're not that late anymore to anything that you do, and you put a lot of time. And for everyone out there, that's exactly what she does. She has really made an effort to put in the work to be on time for what we say we're going to do, because she understands how much it matters to me, and because I addressed this with her. What happened was that she was late to a lot of events that we had, particularly in marketing, because we were knocking on doors at this point when we were still very new in our relationship. And man alive, I just made a payoff about her. I made a story about her that really damaged our relationship. And what that looked like was that I was right. Right? So if I were to put I, and then she, I was right, she was wrong. I respect her and she's being disrespectful. I dominated her. And interpreting her as avoiding me, avoiding the responsibility. And basically, what I did was that I made myself justified. I made myself justified because the root of all payoffs is that someone looks bad. A relationship you have with someone looks bad and you look good. I'm right, she's wrong. I respect her, she's being disrespectful to me. I dominated her because, again, I'm giving lectures. I'm like, hey, you shouldn't be late. Like, what is this? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm interpreting her as avoiding responsibility because nothing's changing. I was justified because I wasn't taking the responsibility. See, the thing is that all these payoffs, any payoff that you have, is just simply me making you justified. It doesn't actually make you right. It doesn't actually make them wrong. It doesn't mean that they're disrespecting you. It doesn't mean that they're trying to upset you. Nothing like that at all. It's simply a way to justify yourself for not taking the responsibility in the situation. What? Taking responsibility? What are you talking about? They're wrong. No, that's not the case. And let me explain why. In this particular instance, but this goes for everyone, when you have a payoff, you're justifying yourself because you already knew that there was something you weren't addressing. You already knew that there was something more you could have done. And instead of acknowledging and taking blame and realizing that you too look bad because there was something you didn't do on your side, there was a lack of accountability, a lack of integrity even on your side, you blamed them even though they aren't responsible for it. Now, don't get me wrong. Yes, actions are still actions. In this case, what I'm justifying myself as is that I've known her way before we started dating. And I will know her for far longer than I have right now. And I've already known, previous to this point, that she's been late to everything. When we weren't dating and she was going to our events and that we were getting together with other operators, she was late to those events all the time. And I always wrote off as like, oh, it's okay. I like her for who she is, yada, yada. But then, for whatever reason, because we're now together, suddenly the story changes. Suddenly I'm justifying myself of not acknowledging and realizing that she has always been late and she has a tendency to be late. And instead I interpret it as her being disrespectful to me. It makes no difference. The only difference really is the fact that we're in a relationship. It's more intimate to me now. And because it's more intimate to me, I'm making it mean something different. Because I'm part of the relationship, I'm not necessarily part of her when we were just one big group. And it really struck me one day because, now again, I know that she's late, but it really struck me that I wasn't acknowledging that. And I wasn't also taking the steps to really help her out, support her, help her out, care for her in that point when I was working with her on stuff. And what ended up happening one day was that she came up to me and she was late. And we hadn't seen each other for, I think, 2 weeks at that point, because we usually see each other once a week. And she was so sheepish. She was so shy. She wasn't happy to see me. She was sad and upset. And I asked her why. And she says because she was late and she didn't want me to scold her. And whenever I think about when I've made when I have an upset with someone where they look bad to me, I realize that it's because there's a payoff there. And I'm letting myself be justified instead of taking responsibility. Because I guarantee you, for me, I knew that's not a relationship I wanted to have with my partner. I don't want her to be afraid that I'm going to scald her because she was late. Of all things, because she's late. She didn't cheat on me. She was late. That's when I really realized that the reason why it's a payoff is because you rob yourself of the relationship you have with someone else. You're robbing yourself of that. My payoff was that I was right. She was wrong, right? Wrong. I got to dominate and lecture her. I got to shame and guilt. I don't know. I got to be the bigger man. Bigger man, better character. Character, good. I was all these things. What I robbed myself of was joy, happiness, love, the compassion, really. Compassion too. I don't know if you can't really see that, but compassion. And I realized that in being right, dominating, bigger, being bigger and having a better character at that point, because I was robbing myself of joy, happiness, love, and compassion for my partner in this case, that I was always upset and angry and mean or rude. I'm sure I was rude. I'm sure she could say I was rude. I was sassy. Yes, I was sassy. Sassy. Again, it's a vicious cycle. It's a vicious cycle. And that's why, especially when there are gaps in the story, literally, there's gaps in what happened, I start having an upset with someone, with something that is there that keeps consistent, I don't want it to be there, I realize it's because there's a payoff. And from that moment, what I did is I flipped it on its head. So what I would do is that I would text her, I would remind her, it's like, hey, we have this event. The way I operated was different. So when I texted her, there was no malice. When I was chatting with her on the phone, there was no malcontent. There was no lack of compassion. There was empathy. There was kindness. There was love there. And it's the same thing with your teams. Your teams feel your scold. Your teams feel when you're making them wrong and when they're not looking good. And if you watch the integrity video, you're going to find out that that's exactly what you don't want to happen. You don't want to make people right and wrong. You want to make them feel safe. You want them to be open and acknowledge what they haven't done so that they can move forward. You can't move forward without acknowledging it. If you're feeling bad because you're looking bad because your boss made you look bad and feel bad instead of making you feel supported and give you the access you need to actually operate, you're not leading someone. You're making them wrong. You're having a payoff. And the relationship crumbles and crumbles. That's the main point that I wanted to share with you about these payoffs, is that because we always make stories, especially about ourselves and of other people, you have to understand that when you feel certain ways that aren't aligned with how you're looking to feel, whether that's patience, happiness, joy, notice that there's a payoff there. There's something that happened, and then there's something they've made it mean. The last point that I need to make in that video is that stories rule the world. They really do, and they can rule your life. And they can either empower you and empower others, or disempower all the same. And when you realize that you have these stories, you need to make a choice. You actively and verbally have to say what you're going to choose to do about it. As soon as you recognize it, you got to choose what you're going to do. You're either going to keep it or you let go. And when you let go, a weight's off your shoulders. You don't have to. I'm going to make the case why I think you should. When you let go, there's a weight off your shoulders. When you let go, you're even a better leader than you were before because you're more accountable than you ever thought you would be. You're going the extra mile in a way that you didn't think you would. And your team sees that. They feel that. And they do appreciate that. You need to make sure that you can do those sort of things and will free you. It will free you from so much strife, from so much energy being taken away, and you're going to have more fulfilling relationships. Here's the thing. Here's the catch. Is that when you let go of these payoffs, there's no buts. There's no maybes. There's no what ifs. You leave it because it's not serving you anymore. You've actively chosen that that doesn't serve you. And you're choosing a different path. So please keep that in mind. I hope that this video was helpful, if not educational for you. If you have anything else to talk about or any comments or questions, please make sure to put it down in the description below. I would love to make some videos on it. And I'll see you all in the next video.